So what I have to say ties in a little bit with what Goethe was talking about the sacred fool, which is one of the archetypal historical roles of men who cross the gender line. At the outset, I'd like to apologize to the women in the room. My studies have not included women crossing the gender line, which is an enormous and valuable field of inquiry. In 2000, last year when I was 18, Paramount contracted me to write the history of drag when they were putting out Priscilla Queen of the Desert's DVD. And if you get one of the old copies, you can see a picture of me in pre-sister drag. It's frightening. And so I wrote 14 pages on the history of drag and did in-depth research on this and found out some things that I wish all queens and friends of queens knew. The big thing that was burned out of society, out of Western society, which has had the loudest voice for about 1,000, 2,000 years, right, is that gay men who cross the gender line used to be the spiritual functionaries of society. The shamans, the priests, the magicians, the hypnotists, and the storytellers. Not that others didn't do this and couldn't do this. Certainly in Europe and in Africa and in the Americas, there's been a long tradition of witches, of wise women, also doing healing work and storytelling. I will tell the story of the gay men. The French, when they came to the New World, called them berdache, which is sort of a 16th century way of saying faggot. But it's now one of the words that academia uses to describe this archetype of the cross-gendering male who performs a spiritual function. When the conquistadors came to Central America, they found one in every village and killed them for heresy. But the important thing, you know, we can forgive. They've got fabulous shoes. The important point is there was one in every village. We were there, and in places in the world like Siberia and in the South Pacific, it still exists. We still perform this function. If you study theater, like Theater 101, they tell you that religion and theater were the same thing back in prehistory. So dressing up like this and doing interesting, strange, funny things is part of ritual because it's part of theater. They're the same thing. You're using physicality in odd, unexpected ways to change people's consciousness and feelings. And that's what we do. To bring this to the sisters, manifesting is job one. It all started in 1979, the day before Easter, when 3 guys had these old nuns' habits of dead nuns from Iowa City, a convent in Iowa City, and they told them they were going to perform a production of The Sound of Music.
She was a hooker and a thief.
It's like Les Miserables. Je suis fromage. From Les Miserables, the original French version. And they took these habits and they moved to San Francisco, and one day they decided to hit the streets of San Francisco with Carl Malden. And they found that they got such a reaction to this bearded, hairy-chested men in these nuns' habits, they decided to make a go of it. And they got together a bigger group, and one who had been in a seminary with lots of seamen came up with the name of Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. That was sister missionary position.
There may or may not have been psychedelics and other smokables involved.
We're reprehensible! There is room in the world for me to do this, so there is room in the world for you and you and you to be who you are as you are. No shame, no guilt, love and joy.